The twin suns of Valera shone bright over the royal courtyard as the guests of the interstellar summit arrived in shimmering lines of color and light. Ships shaped like wings, crystals, and long metallic arcs descended with slow grace. The gathering marked the first peaceful meeting between the Valeran Dominion and the wider network of human colonies. At the center of it all stood the Princess of Valera, Arila, known across the stars for her calm judgment and keen senses. Her species relied on scent as much as sight, and her ability to remember a person by the faintest trace of their presence was unmatched. She moved through the crowd with dignified composure, greeting delegates with practiced ease. Though she appeared serene, her eyes carried the weight of responsibility, for she believed this summit might shape the path of her people for centuries. Among the crowd was a single human standing quietly near the back, unnoticed by most. His name was Leon, a simple envoy assistant by title. He wore a plain uniform and held himself in a modest posture, almost as if he wished to avoid attention. Human envoys carried no aura in the way Valerans did. They appeared plain to the senses of the gathering species, but Leon was used to blending in. He preferred it. Still, he had been summoned to accompany the human delegation after a last-minute switch. He told no one he had been to Valera before. He told no one what had happened there. He never expected the princess to walk close enough to pick up the scent he thought had long faded from memory. Arila moved with steady steps, her silver crest shimmering in the sun. She turned toward the human group with polite courtesy. Her mind was already running through the formal greetings she needed to deliver. But as she drew closer, a faint scent drifted to her from somewhere behind the front line of delegates. It struck her with the force of a forgotten storm. Her eyes widened. Her breath halted. Her body froze mid-step. She knew that scent. It was impossible. It had been cycles since she last sensed it. It belonged to the human who had saved her life in the deep caverns of Terrell Ridge. During a crisis, her world had tried to bury in silence. Leon stiffened when he saw her pause. He recognized that reaction. Valeran senses were powerful, and once they locked onto something, there was no escaping. He had hoped she might never connect him to that moment long ago. He had saved her because she had been in danger, not because he wanted recognition. Yet now the princess stared past the crowd straight toward him with a look that told him she remembered everything. The delegates around her whispered in confusion. Arila did not move. Her crest glowed with a soft pulse, and her pupils narrowed. She took a step toward Leon, then another, weaving past others without acknowledging their concerns. Humans nearby backed away, unsure of her intent. Leon stood his ground, though his heart pounded in his chest. He had been trained for tense situations, but nothing prepared him for this. She stopped only a step away from him. Her voice was soft yet firm. She asked him if he was the human from the caverns. Leon answered with a quiet yes. The courtyard fell into absolute silence. No one understood why the princess was focusing so intensely on a simple envoy. Arila studied him with an expression that mixed disbelief, gratitude, and a faint tremor of emotion she was not used to showing. She told him she had searched for him. She explained that the caves had collapsed shortly after he had carried her out, and no one had managed to track his departure. Her people assumed he had left the planet at once, but she had never forgotten him. His bravery had saved her when she could not defend herself. She had been young then, and only a journey meant for rites of passage had turned disastrous. Leon had been there by accident, but his courage remained imprinted in her scent memory. Leon felt uncomfortable with the attention, but bowed respectfully. He said he had only done what anyone would do in that situation. Arila shook her head. She said no one else would have risked that kind of danger for someone they had never met. She could still recall the feel of his steady arms as he carried her through narrow tunnels, and the calm determination in his voice when everything around them threatened collapse. Her world saw humans as unpredictable, fragile, and too quick to act. Yet this human had acted with a level of strength they still did not fully grasp, that the surrounding delegates and guards were unsure how to react. The royal advisor stepped forward to interrupt, but Arila raised a hand to silence him. She turned her focus back to Leon. Her voice softened into a tone only he could hear. She wanted to know why he had never tried to contact her again. He replied that someone like her had responsibilities beyond a single moment of crisis. He believed she had likely forgotten him. He did not think he had a place in her world. She told him he was wrong. Her species remembered sense with absolute clarity. She remembered him every time she passed the northern winds that carried the minerals of Terrell Ridge. She had hoped she would meet him again, not as a princess, but as someone who wished to understand the strange courage he had shown that day. A sudden burst of commotion cut through the crowd. A sharp metallic sound echoed across the courtyard. An alarm flared. A group of armed intruders dropped from the upper terraces. Their armor reflected the gold light of Valera, and they moved with purpose. They aimed to disrupt the summit. Arila's guards rushed to intercept them, but they were too slow. The intruders targeted the princess first. Leon could not ignore the danger. His training surged forth. Humans were known for adaptability, intuition, and sharp reflexes. Leon moved before the nearest intruder could fire. With precise motion, he pushed Arila behind a marble pillar and took the blast to his shoulder. The shockwave hit him hard, but he remained standing. He gritted his teeth and countered with swift force. He seized the intruder's arm and disarmed him with fluid precision. The crowd gasped. The Valerans had always believed humans to be weaker than most species, but Leon's strength contradicted every assumption. Arila watched with wide eyes as Leon fought off attackers one after another. His stance was steady. His movements were efficient. He showed no hesitation. The guards regrouped and joined him, but it was Leon who had prevented the initial strike that would have harmed the princess. As the final intruder was subdued, the courtyard returned to tense silence. The human delegation stared at him with shock. The Valeran nobles murmured in disbelief. Arila stepped toward him slowly, her eyes filled with more emotion than before. She told him he had saved her again. Leon's shoulder burned with pain, but he brushed it off lightly. He said he could not stand aside when lives were at risk. Arila placed a hand near his wound, but did not touch it. Her species had a tradition of recognizing those who had shown exceptional courage. She told him he had earned something rare among her people. She declared that any human capable of such selfless bravery deserved the highest respect of the Valeran dominion. The crowd reacted with awe. It was not merely praise. It was a formal acknowledgement that carried political weight. Her advisor tried to object, warning that such recognition could shift power dynamics. Arila ignored him. She said that truth should not be hidden just because it was inconvenient. She proclaimed that this human had twice saved the life of the heir to Valera. That fact alone demanded honor. Leon felt overwhelmed. He had never sought attention. Yet the princess spoke with conviction. She invited him to accompany her to the inner palace for treatment. He resisted at first, but the guards insisted. As they walked through the crystalline hallways, Arila spoke in a softer tone. She said she admired his humility. She said humans possessed a type of quiet strength her people rarely understood. She believed her world had misjudged humanity. Leon listened quietly. He admitted he did not think his actions mattered in such a grand scheme. Arila countered that every action mattered. One act of courage could change alliances. One life saved could shift the fate of species. She said he had proved something important. Humans were not fragile outsiders. They were capable of resilience that defied expectation. When the healers finished treating his wound, Arela remained beside him. She asked him about his life, his world, and what had brought him to the summit. He shared simple details. He was not a soldier by choice. He preferred quiet work, but he trained when needed. She listened with genuine interest. He noticed her eyes brighten at small stories, as if she wished to understand every part of what made humans who they were. Over the next days, the summit continued. Political tensions softened. Delegates who once doubted humanity began to speak with respect. Leon became a symbol of the strength humans carried but never flaunted. Arela found herself seeking moments to speak with him privately. They walked through gardens illuminated by blue fireflies. They talked about the future of their worlds. Leon found her presence calming. Arela felt his straightforward honesty grounding. One evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon, Arela led him to the high terrace overlooking the capital. She stood close to him, the gentle glow of the city reflecting in her eyes. She told him she wished to thank him properly, not as a princess, but as someone whose life he had changed. She said he taught her that strength was not measured by size or power, but by the choices a person made. She admitted she had feared she would never see him again, and now that he was here, she did not want him to vanish once more. Leon felt a warmth in his chest he could not ignore. He told